Perfect. All right, welcome everyone to today's webinar, 7 Habits for Building a Highly Engaged Parent Community, brought to you today by ParentSquare. And we offer a tool, an easy to use tool to help modernize school to home communication, to engage all family, and to really build community. I'm Kristen Morrison, and I will be your moderator today. And I'm really excited to be joined by our featured guest, Bob, as well as Lynn. So I'll start with introducing Bob. Bob Bourgault is the Executive Director of Almond Acres Charter School. It's a K-8 school that places great focus on building meaningful relationships between everyone, students, staff, and parents. And Bob is a very busy man. He does a lot in his community. He's an adjunct professor at the university. He has his MS in education, but also in counseling and guidance. So you'll hear a lot of that background come out today. And over his career, he's won so many awards in the education space, and just a true leader and visionary. And I'm just great privileged to know him and be able to learn from him over the years. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And thank you for the accolades there. I just want to mention my favorite credential, though, is being a dad. I have 7 children and a beautiful wife, and that's where I get most of my knowledge and wisdom, if that's true.
That's amazing. Yeah, that truly, balances you out to have so many children. And also Lynn, with 3 children, Lynn Sillers here, co-founder of ParentSquare, is joining us. And really she focuses on helping schools and districts leverage technology and best-in-class best practices for improving communication and bridging the gap between schools and families, all, of course, to drive student success. And she's joining us today. She'll be standing by, fielding questions throughout the webinar, but also will be giving us a quick demonstration of the ParentSquare platform at the end, in case anyone wants to stick around to see firsthand the tool that Bob and his staff use every day. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much. And I'll just say just what you mentioned there, Bob. There's nothing more humbling than being a parent yourself with children, and especially what I find very useful and what's been interesting since my children entered into elementary school has been to just watch how the communication is done, and then having systems in place that kind of accommodates you as a millennial parent, or various parents from various backgrounds, and how you can start that collaboration. And it's been really fascinating to watch, and again, I learned the most from my children as well.
Thank you, Lynn. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what are we going to share today? Every education leader knows firsthand from experiences, or of course just from the plethora of research out there, that engaging families leads to more productive and successful students, and so many more benefits beyond that. But the question still lies, how do we get parents more involved, and how do we create sustained school community? And of course, every community culture or school culture is different, and there's no one answer to this equation. But the tried and true techniques that we have learned from various school leaders can really help build a foundation toward this goal. And today we've invited Bob to share his 7 habits that he has truly passionately crafted in pursuit of building a school community that he places great focus on. And so he'll share these unique habits that he's built. He'll also go into key practices. So not only the philosophy behind the habit, but what does he do to activate this habit, and then what are some real life examples from his school that really demonstrate how these actually work and are so effective. So the hope is that each of you will be able to balance today the philosophical approach to these 7 habits with real life examples that you can practice it within your school community. All right, so let me just, before we get started here and hand this over to Bob, I want to make sure everybody knows that we have, based on a pretty large audience today, we have everyone in listen-only mode. But we would like this to be an interactive discussion. So please use that Q&A panel that you were testing out in the beginning to ask questions and make comments throughout the actual webinar. We'll be monitoring that. We'll be sharing sharing any feedback from the audience and interjecting with Bob. For the most part, I'm going to let him run with his content. But please make sure that we hear your questions and your ideas. And of course, we'll be recording this, so we will send this archive out to you after, so you can share it with your team for anyone who's not able to make it. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Bob, and Bob, you can start with this powerful statement and take it from here.
Thank you very much, Kristen, and thanks everybody for joining us again today. As I listen to the two of you speak, it just comes to mind the number one element of positive relationships, be that your spouse, your friend, your colleague, your child, we all know is communication. And what we're trying to share today is how do we communicate with a common voice and synergize our efforts as educators and families to grow great kids. So it's all about having the same message. So as we go through these habits are messages that we can share with families, that families share with us, and using that common vocabulary, we will grow great kids because we'll create that synergistic effect. So that first statement that she just had up there is parent involvement is such a primary element of student achievement. We know that from so many different forms of research, whether we're looking at academic success or, more importantly, I use the phrase growing great kids. Ultimately, when our kids are finished with their educational experience, who are they going to be as adults? Are they going to be great citizens? Are they going to be great leaders? Well, we do a lot of work now. And that next slide, showing a tree, is a metaphor to understanding this. Our children are going to grow up, and they already have roots. They are seeds that have been sown, and they have roots. So the question about how successful that tree will grow or that child will grow has everything to do with how we fertilize those roots. So we use this metaphor to help us understand what our effort really is, and that's in fertilizing kids with great habits. But if somebody were to ask me, Bob, give me the short run, the short version of what your school does, it's those three words at the top: affirm, stretch, and celebrate. When we affirm children for their strengths and maybe more importantly their struggles, and then we stretch them to the capacity of being the best version of themselves, and then we give them the high five or we have a piece of cake, that's when kids grow. Kids grow beautifully with that. If we were to try to start with the stretch or the celebrate and not affirm first, we're going to run into too many obstacles because students don't trust you yet, or your child may not trust. So affirming kids for their strengths and their struggles will allow us to stretch them, and when they've stretched, we've got to have cake. We've got to celebrate that. So those three terms, I think, are the best, simplest way to express what we're talking about today, and I hope you take that with you. I think it can be used in any and every relationship that we have. But going deeper into the soil there and those habits, these habits can be various sets of habits. So many of us are using character counts. You might be using the 16 habits just lost the name, or the 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey. So those sets of habits really are thinking and personal character traits. So let's look a little further. One of the sets of habits that we're using here is the developmental assets from the Search Institute, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But let's look at habit number 1. And as I was mentioning earlier with affirming kids, it's about honoring their uniqueness, how they are unique individuals in their own right with their own gifts and talents. And when we honor that, we show that we care. And when a student believes that we care, or your child believes that you care, they're willing to grow. They're willing to expand their horizons and stretch themselves. So if I may, I'd like to do a quick little exercise with everybody. It's very simple, but it's a way to physically feel what I'm talking about when we're talking about our uniqueness and affirming that. So if you will, just clasp your hands together with your fingers interlocked. And now look at your hands, and some of you have your left thumb on top. Your hands are clasped that way. Others have their right. And what that means is basically nothing. It doesn't matter the gender. It doesn't matter whether you're left or right-handed. It doesn't matter whether you're a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner. It really has nothing to do with you as a person. What it illustrates is that's your unique way of clasping your hands, and you did it that way in your mother's womb. You started it that way in your life, and you've been doing it that way ever since, unless somebody forced you to do it differently. So the point, though, is how it feels different if you do it the opposite way. So take your hands apart, reclasp them, and if you'd like to, just go ahead and say, you know, what that feels like on our chat line or the question bar there. Most people will say, oh my gosh, that's weird, it's awkward, it just feels uncomfortable. Well, that's what happens when we don't honor uniqueness of a child. If we tell them, sorry, you're doing it the wrong way, we've just taken the affirmation out of the equation. And they don't believe maybe that they're smart because they're not doing it the way somebody else told them to do it. So honoring our uniqueness is looking at those innate capacities, those elements of the child, be that their learning modality, their intelligence, or their personality, honoring those things and affirming a child for those talents that they have and not telling them that they're doing it wrong. And then we can stretch the child. So in a couple of the things that we're doing at Almond Acres Charter Academy is creating opportunities for children to understand that, to assess those qualities. So their learning modality, their temperament, their intelligences, all of those elements that kind of make up their personal disposition are collected and put into a portfolio system. They're then shared, obviously, with the teacher, but then also with the parents. So at our first parent conferences, the students sit down with the teacher and their parent, and they explain their personal learning profile to their parents and teacher, and they own it, and they're affirmed for it. And then we use those strengths to stretch any struggles. So that portfolio system is a critical element of our program to affirm and honor the uniqueness of every child. So it's done at the beginning of the year to set it all up and set the goal trimester, and it's used at the parent conferences, any parent conference, and then students are reflecting on that or in that portfolio every week with artifacts and checking on their goals. That's habit number one. Let's move on to the next one. Habit number two comes from some wonderful research from Patrick Lencioni and organizational health. But looking at, well, let me start back with organizational health to him. What is a system that we use and think about when we're developing relationships, teams, whether that's, again, the home or the classroom or an organization. What it does is it creates strong engagement by all individuals in the organization. If you go to the next slide, I can show you his pyramid that he uses to describe visually the elements of organizational health. So they include 5 components, and initially he called it the 5 dysfunctions of a team, but in fact they're the 5 functions of a team. They include trust as the base, and without trust you can't really get very far. But with trust you can have good ideological conflict. And once you've had conflict and addressed issues, then you can get commitment. With commitment, then comes accountability. But with those 4 things in place, we achieve results. And again, it's as simple as a relationship with a friend or a family member. If we trust each other, we're willing to put our issues on the table, we're willing to recommit, and then hold each other accountable, and that's what creates long-lasting relationships. So those principles of that organizational health model are built into our school to remind all of us, both teachers, parents, students, the entire organization, of what it takes to achieve results. So we call it our KPI meeting every morning. It's a key performance indicators, and we have that for 10 minutes every day, the start of the day with the entire faculty and staff. And we are very briefly addressing any issues. We're applauding efforts, affirming the things that we're doing. It's quick, it's sweet, and it's super powerful. Then we move out to the students and we have Shared Start. Shared Start is a gathering of all students, grades K through 8, And each day we celebrate different students. For the habit of the week, we celebrate students for example, last weekend there was a handful of students that competed in a triathlon locally. So we shared that and celebrated that. It's a quick 10-minute deal, but on Mondays we talk about the mind. Tuesdays the topic of citizenship. Wednesday we wish happy birthdays. Thursdays we talk about what we're thankful for, and Friday is Funny Friday, and we tell jokes. And each of those things have something to do with developing neurological strength. Okay, next slide. Inspiring leadership. Well, if you've affirmed me and you've given me opportunities to stretch, you're going to build me as a leader. Again, whether I'm a student or a parent or a teacher, anybody on our staff, anyone on our team, by building leadership, in other words, building a person's personal leadership qualities, we're going to create a stronger team. And that creates, again, more synergy. If we look at those 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey, that synergy of leadership is extremely powerful. We now have a team of teachers and parents in our organization who are leading so many efforts in our school. It makes my job a little bit easier, but it also inspires every person to take part in this organization. Most importantly, we provide leadership roles to students. So through our student body organization, through our classroom leadership structure, every student is treated as a leader. Some of you may be using the Leader in Me program by the Franklin Covey Foundation in your school. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is helping students to understand that every one of us are leaders in our own right. And given the opportunities, the experiences, then we will develop those leaders. And again, it's about fertilizing each of our roots, giving us opportunities and experiences to develop those skills by stretching us. And like the slide says, it's just a constant, consistent message throughout the school, throughout the day at our shared start and our KPI meetings, that students understand that every one of us are unique leaders. One of my favorite things to do every week is to write Mr. B's Habit of the Week message. And it's been very wonderful to see parents respond to this. The message is simple. It's about one of our habits. This week, the habit is seek first to understand and then be understood. And I write a brief message, give the parents some links out there that help us to communicate with our children and understand our children. I'll give them some understanding maybe about discipline or brain research. And then I get a ton of responses from families. They're clipping these things on the refrigerator, and they're using, here's where we get the synergy. Parents start to use the vocabulary that we're using at the school because it works. It works both at home and in the classroom. And when the kids are hearing the same language, look out. That's when that synergy really takes its effect and we grow great kids faster and stronger. A quick anecdotal note, this past week, we have parents that come to our shared start and they have kids in their strollers, and one of the moms stopped me afterward and she said that her 4-year-old had an interesting comment to her. She was asking the 4-year-old, are you excited about coming to Almond Acres next year? And last week's habit was putting first things first. And he literally looked at his mom and said, Mom, put first things first. I'm only 4, I'm still in preschool. And it just blew my mind that this 4-year-old that's sitting in a stroller is listening to these habits and taking this message from the school and applying it to his life as a 4-year-old. So that's the kind of just talking about these messages and sharing them through our ParentSquare post is providing the vocabulary that we can share and that consistent message that we all want to have with our kids. Next habit, empowering teacher-parent partnerships. Like I said at the beginning, our greatest effort is only great for what we do individually unless we share it. When we have a combined effort between the family, the school, and the community, we're going to get that synergistic effect. So it has to be a partnership between the three of us. Those of you who have looked at the 40 developmental asset research, I'll quickly, briefly share that. The Search Institute identified 40 assets, 40 elements of a child's life that can develop success and happiness in a child. They quantified that and identified that if a student had 31 to 40 assets, they have this particular probability of success, both academically, valuing others, leadership skills, etc. So they conversely recognized that without those assets, students are going to have high-risk behaviors. And the high-risk behaviors will include both the use of drugs and alcohol and tobacco, violence, etc. So we kind of know that just common sense is, as parents, if we provide our children with positive experiences in life, positive episodes in time with sports and music and reading and family life, our children will have fewer high-risk behaviors. Well, they did the work for us. They quantified all of that to prove it. But what they didn't do at the time was identify which ones the student has control over, which ones the family has control over, the school and the community. We did that study here at our school and identified that students, the younger students especially, only have control over about 4 of those assets. Then the family controls about a dozen of them. The school controls another dozen, and the rest the community. So it takes synergy. It takes the effort of all of us to grow great kids. If that asset work is accurate, which they've had 15 years now of accuracy on their data, then we need to work together. And if we have a common language and we can share that common language through these formats such as ParentSquare, our newsletters, any tools that we're using to share information with families, then the kids are going to hear the same language and they're going to get the same experiences both at home and at school. Moving forward on that next slide. Sorry, I'll get talking and get off my podium. So sending regular messages from the teachers, our habits, they hear the message from me, they're getting them back from the teacher and how they relate to the classroom. That bi-directional communication is super powerful. Teachers use ParentSquare to send out monthly classroom newsletters at least twice a month. Most of them do it every week. And then constantly messaging back and forth. ParentSquare is the only tool that we use to communicate with our parents. We rarely use email. We're using the ParentSquare, and you can make that a private message to somebody, but we're not using regular text messages. We're not using a Facebook program. We're not using even our website to communicate most of this to our parents. It's kind of a lockdown system, which makes it much more private and allows us to be direct about our messages. Okay, moving on to the habit number 5. Check my time here. All right. Parent active participation. You know, when we started our school, we had so many parents say they were so discouraged that they weren't allowed on campus in most schools. They weren't allowed to go into the classroom or even attend field trips. And it was very discouraging for parents that they couldn't participate. Parents, for the most part, really want to participate in their child's education. They want the tools, and they need the school to share those tools. So by joining hands, by saying we want you here, by making sure that's safe, number 1, and then devoting our time to parent training, to parent workshops, then we will get that, again, that synergy, the synergistic effect on student achievement. And in terms of, go to the next slide, the tool, ParentSquare, allows us to poll our parents. It allows us to communicate regularly with our parents. We can communicate in groups. So if it's just the first grade teacher, they're only sending messages to the first grade class. I can send out a message to the entire school or any one part of the school. So they're using this tool to push the message out and ask for participation. It might be a simple poll. It could be a request for volunteers for a field trip or a school event. Parents sign up. Our assistant director sends out a message once a month looking for support for chores or jobs at the school. We need experts to help us with any one facility issue, and parents sign up for that. They sign up for a specific job, and then they come in, and we have a Saturday work day once a month, and they come in to take care of that particular. And it's all posted there. Parents sign up, and we know whether or not we have the help that we need. So that immediate sign up, immediate participation is very efficient, convenient, and again, they feel a part of the school. Habit number 6 is community outreach. Sharing our philosophy with the community has been wonderful. We've obviously it's improved our enrollment because people hear about us, but more importantly, we've generated partnerships and advocacy for our school from local organizations. Our Optimist Club, our Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce, various organizations, service organizations, as well as local businesses have recognized their role in developing student assets, their role in education, and have participated and partnered with us directly here at the school. So, I'll give you a quick example of that. We had one local company, let me go backwards a step, project-based learning, and better said, service project-based learning is the theme of our instructional design model. And to do that well, you must have organizations, partners within the community to create the connection with the curriculum. So by sharing our message, our philosophy, and seeking partnerships, we have a reciprocal relationship with many, many businesses and organizations in town that are providing both resources for us. There could be capital resources, but mostly human resources, bringing experts into the classroom and providing field studies or field trips for students to go out. One of our major corporations in the area allowed their engineers to work with our students online in the classroom to develop a mock robot to harvest almonds. And they worked back and forth for about a month with the students, communicating and sharing their ideas. And then the students got to go to the plant and work with the engineers directly and get to see how they harvested almonds at the plant. So that engagement came from parents. The businesses that we've joined with most, I'd probably say 75% of them, are the result of parent engagement. So by communicating with our parents, we've created a community outreach and a community connection that's been super powerful in many ways, both financially, again, the human resource, and most importantly, providing real service project-based learning experiences for our kids. Finally, number 7, assessing our KPIs, and that's tracking and measuring. It goes back to that accountability piece. Are we holding each other accountable to the results that we expect to have? Go to one more slide. We have adopted various key performance indicators. Some of you may be familiar with lean management systems or this KPI idea, but essentially during our 10-minute meeting every morning, we're looking at the data that tells us whether or not we're achieving our results. So we have a wall in the office, you have a picture of it there on your screen, that identifies 4 main areas. Our school is based on the theme of honoring the whole child, heart, mind, body, and soul. We start with the body, though, every Monday, and that's safety, facilities, and equipment. And then we go to the heart, which is our families and our community. The soul of our school is teaching and learning. And the mind of our school is administration and finance. So we chunk those 4 areas. We create key performance indicators for each of them. And in each day of the week, we're reflecting on our growth or lack of in any one of those 4 areas. So we assess that constantly, which again goes back to that organizational health structure that calls us to accountability. If we don't hold each other accountable, obviously, if we don't hold the children accountable to certain behaviors, be that intellectual behaviors or personal behaviors, we'll never achieve the results, despite the fact that I might trust you and we could have conflict and we have commitment. But if we don't hold each other accountable, then we will never achieve that highest level of potential achievement. So these are on our walls, and we use that every day to assess the results and the quality of our program. And frankly, this may sound like, oh my gosh, how would I get teachers to want to do this? The first year we started it, I would say 50% of the teachers were very against it because we were taking 10 minutes out of their prep time every morning, but now we cannot live without it. I do little talking now. The teachers do most of the talking. They look at the KPIs, they comment on them. We have lead teachers in each of these areas. And even parents come in and they'll talk about our program site council KPIs and how those are working. So it's turned into this really powerful organizational health that then has turned into that same health with our students because they hear us talking to their parents, they hear us saying the same thing that we're saying to them. And again, back to that idea of synergy, we create this beautiful synergy in our organization. So it's not perfect, but it sure is beautiful. So one last time on the habits, we're building habits to engage parent community by honoring the uniqueness of children and all of us as adults. We're creating organizational health. We're inspiring leaders. We're empowering teacher-parent partnerships. We're activating participation through various means, especially the tools that we have available to us on ParentSquare. We're reaching out to our community, and then we're assessing our results. So I hope those habits give you some insight to some practical ways that we can engage parents in a very organic way, in a very real and caring way. It's about growing great kids, and what more does a parent want to do or a teacher want to do than to grow great kids. So thank you for listening to those.
Thank you, Bob. Amazing. I'm just sitting here, both Lynn and I are sitting here learning every time you share this information. I know this is really only scratching the surface on these 7 habits and other habits that you've shared. So I believe that you should write a book at some point on all of this because it truly is amazing. And
we're having too much fun running a school.
Yeah, I know. There's no time for that. One day maybe. So yeah, thank you. These are the 7 habits. Definitely encourage each and every one of you to take a look at these and figure out what can you bring back to your own school community. What are you doing today that you might want to build on, or what are some new ideas here from Bob that might help you build your parent community. So with that, I'm just looking at the time, and we just have maybe 10 more minutes before we're going to wrap up and let everybody go. I wanted to transition quickly to the ParentSquare platform with Lynn so you guys can really see this tool that Bob and his organization uses. So as I'm sharing this, I'm going to switch over to Lynn's screen. Give me a second here. And we're going to actually jump into the live interface of ParentSquare. So I'm going to make Lynn the presenter on the fly here, and hopefully in moments you can see her. Perfect. There we go.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, thank you, Bob. I am inspired. This is I take some of these habits with me and try to use them just as a day-to-day tool with my own children. I mean, it's amazing. As you say, it works in every environment. That's no doubt about that, but especially in the school environment. So ParentSquare, we're trying what we are. We're a parent communication and engagement platform. It's all web-based. It's really there to accommodate today's schools, to accommodate today's millennial parents or parents of all kinds, ensuring that they can easily retrieve information, but also collaborate back with the school community to emphasize building these relationships that are so important. Even if a child's parent isn't able to come onto site and necessarily be in the classroom and help out volunteering on those in those levels, there is something to be said about being able to share what's happening in the classroom, and also effectively allowing teachers to share. This is the project we're working on. A parent can now take this information and talk to their child about it more intelligently. Instead of asking, how was school today? You can ask, I know you're working on California. What did you learn about the map project? Tell me about the map project, for example, that you're working on. And then your child, they don't know quite how you know, but obviously it's going to set the stage. School is important, my parents care. So what you're seeing here is one of our demo sites. We call it Lincoln Elementary School. This would be your school. Basically, I'm logged in as an administrator, but this is also, as I emphasized earlier, a tool that all teachers will use, whom parents can utilize. If you have PTA, PTO, we also work with a lot of districts that emphasize parent engagement within their district, and they set this up for all their sites, and they also have a higher level of district kind of overview to understand how well their sites are doing when it comes to communication, and then that so important parent engagement component. Now, I'm just going to take you down this message board really quick so you can see. Bob mentioned there's newsletters going out, and it's very select how audience will retrieve the information. Fifth grade parents will get a lot of fifth grade information. It's a safe and secure platform to share photos and files, so it also brings in some of those fun social aspects of all the great things that are happening at the school. You can include videos. We've seen a lot of learning videos being sent home to parents to help more with the new ways to teach math and the new ways to think about math, so you can then better support your children at home. We see a ton of teachers putting these little videos together and sharing with parents. And then a perfect scenario, this is, I just mentioned the map project. It's close in my mind because it's something that my own children were working on not too long ago. And a teacher sharing the project, what the final product will look like, and now having the ability to create a wish list or a volunteer list, and parents can sign up again on any device. That's one unique thing about ParentSquare. You would send out one message, parent will retrieve that message either as an email or a text message, or we even have an app for both iPhone and Android. And then of course there's always the ability to log in through your own parent portal, which would only contain information that again relates to your child or children, not all this information that I'm showing you here logged in as a principal. Now, how do we get these messages out? You click New Post. ParentSquare will integrate with most any student information system, so we will set up your school in advance. As an administrator, you can of course make school-wide announcements. Bob makes a lot of these school-wide announcements. But sometimes it's important just to reach out to the first grade parents, or as a teacher, just the parents of your particular classroom. So all of this will be set up in advance. We see a lot of internal school communication. If I go down this list, you see teachers and staff. We see other groups and committees being created outside of what we find maybe in someone's student information system. You may have after school programs or other groups and committees that you would like to allow to have a more intimate collaborative component to it, and just message out to those parents. For a school-wide announcement, I'm just going to show you, we'll talk about the Great California Shakeout that at least we're experiencing right as we're speaking, I believe. My children were very excited about it this morning. So,
and just to let everyone know, that's a drill for earthquakes that all schools are actually doing right now in California of all grade levels to prepare for a future earthquake.
Yes, thank you. And this is a message I myself retrieved yesterday, and again as a reminder this morning. So you can see what information you can share in ParentSquare. We also have the ability to translate any message into multiple languages. We allow for over 100 different languages to translate messages into. Oftentimes we see schools that have English and then another secondary language that a lot of their information goes out in. So in this instance, this message will go out in English followed by Spanish. And you can, of course...
Lynn, can I butt in for a second?
Oh, please do, Bob. I love when you do.
Thanks. Real quick on the emergency messages, that has been a super powerful tool and so appreciated by parents. Every time we do a drill, be that a lockdown drill, fire drill, earthquake drill, within 15 minutes we've sent out a message to the parents to let them know that we did the drill. And then we're asking parents just to click appreciate so we know that they got the message. So in the case of a real situation, they have, number one, immediate feedback from us as to what the status of the situation is, and then we know that they're getting the messages. Super powerful. Parents absolutely love getting that, and going back to that organizational health, it builds trust. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Absolutely. I'll show what those appreciations are all about. This comes back to that two-way collaboration component. When I click post now, again, you will see how your families will retrieve this information. You push something like this out, parents will receive this, and again, from any device. You got your phone with me or with you? I with me because I do all the time. You can simply click appreciate, and that's exactly what Bob is referring to there. You can also ask a question or provide feedback. Thank you so much for the reminder. And this goes back basically to if Bob sent this out, this will go back to Bob. He will see this, or the initiator of the post will see this. And it's not a chatty social platform in that sense. It's not going to go back to all the parents. It's just kind of within there, you have a record of the feedback that you're retrieving from your parents. Now, with every message that we send out, it's also important that you know that you're reaching your family. So we'll give clear delivery statistics on every message that you send out that you can look at. And it also clearly shows if there are some parents that you're not reaching. Now, we also have, when we get school started, we ensure that we have information for all parents. So you're starting out at at least a 95% reach, and then again have daily, by the minute, pretty much notices if some parents are not getting reached, because contact information change. We all know that happens. So going back to this kind of main page here, all the messages that are sent out, they will then kind of reside within this message board. We have other components to ParentSquare. We have one-on-one messages, very powerful, just to chat back and forth between a teacher and maybe a parent. We have other alerts and notices if you want to do auto attendance, or if you want to set up to be able to do robocalls. We have that component in ParentSquare as well. But truly what we focus on is you being able to collaborate with your parents. We also ensure that we bring other things online that makes it more accessible for parents, like school directories or calendars. And there's placeholders for photos and files that have been shared with you throughout the school year. So a lot of wonderful things and other additional tools that you can utilize. And Bob, I know you are you use your teachers use our parent-teacher conference signups very effectively. So I just want to share how easy it is to get these set up. The teacher can basically choose to set up their own parent-teacher conferences, invite the parents of the classroom, and usually we see it ranged over a few dates. So I'm just going to show you just another fun, neat component. Again, there to save time, there to save energy, and also time and energy, and keep it more organized for parents. Put in the duration of these conferences, and when you go to the next slide, this basically shows you what you're sending to your parents. Maybe we want to get out a little earlier on Friday. We're going to remove a few slots there. But basically, this is the information I will push out to parents. I can always do my translation. This is a default message that I can add to or edit. And then I just click post now. And my parents will receive just this from any device. They have the ability to sign up. This happens in real time. They can even give a notice to the teacher, say, thank you, I might run 5 minutes late. Sorry in advance. So again, allowing an easy means for parents to get back to you saves so much, so many of those phone calls going into the office. There's a lot of missed phone calls sometimes coming from schools that goes into voicemails of parents, and parents don't end up retrieving the information in real time. If you have the ability to collaborate with parents in their preferred methods, you will see a big difference naturally on the engagement from your parent community.
If I can just add another comment to that.
Please.
Both the teachers and the parents absolutely love that feature. The teachers, because they don't have to coordinate the meetings, they just put the times out there. It's a really simple post to create. The way that the whole format is set up, it's very simple. And then parents now get a choice. So instead of being told this is when your appointment is, they get to choose. Yes, it's first come, first serve, but they have a little more power in this, which they respect and appreciate very much, that they get to decide what time they're going to come into the school. So worked really well for both sides, both the teacher and the parent.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing that. And we have, we're not here to reinvent the wheel day one. Technology is something that gets introduced over time. Some schools do it well. Some teachers are very comfortable with it. There are always the option to print any of this that you do create in ParentSquare. We see a lot of these posted outside of classroom doors, or a few sent home in backpacks. So rest assured, your parents will get on board with this instantaneously. But there are other options for you as well. The beauty of ParentSquare is that when a school or a district decides to adopt this solution, We integrate with your student information system, and everyone is included. And we also even give you real clear records on what parents you may not have the correct data for to contact, and give you an ability to easily fix that. Other things that is neat is that parents don't have to sign up to become part of ParentSquare. They will automatically start retrieving information. And then it's up to the parent if they want to download the app because their preference is app notifications, or if they want to change their own settings by going onto their own account and actually change when they want to receive the information and how. There's, of course, the language settings too, and with some systems, we just kind of flag the parents in their home language if that's how the school and districts want to move forward with ParentSquare. I'm going to kind of end on our usage dashboard, I feel, just to share a little bit on how we also make sure that you have a pulse of your school throughout the school year. What's your reach with your parents? Our average, don't look at this 17%, this is our demo site. Our average amongst all our schools and districts that we work with is 97.5% reach. Now the engagement on average with all our schools across an average is 98.5% of those 97.5% of parents that we're reaching. Engagement means that they're opening the information, they're clicking on the emails that are getting through, the texts are being delivered, the app notifications are getting pushed through. And then to take it a step further, participation. This is an actual parents taking the time to appreciate. They're taking the time to ask the questions, to comment, to sign up, to RSVP to an event, you name it. So it's really an interesting thing for schools to start to look at these numbers as the school year goes on. The last but not least, there's a post dashboard too. This will ensure you that there's not going to be, ParentSquare will never become a tool that will just sit on your shelves. You will know who's utilizing the tool, and these top authors can teach others that may not be getting on it right of day one to learn best practices from the other top posters and utilizers of ParentSquare to help others get started. And when everyone uses one and the same tool, you have all the information gathered in one and the same place. You keep it very organized for parents, and you have insight and access to all your school-to-home communication. And I'm not going to overwhelm you with anything else. I just want to emphasize this is what you're seeing now is just a screenshot of our app. And the way it works, I'm going to show you. This is how the app notifications come through, the two I sent out, the conference signups, and also the Great California Shakeout. This is my mobile device. I can simply get into this message very quickly. I have mine on a Pascal, but you see it takes you straight into the ParentSquare. This is your messages coming to the school as a parent with all the important information. These are all the events that you have upcoming that again relates to your child or children. If there are any things that you can help out with, like Bob mentioned, anything I can sign up for and help my school with, here it is. Photos and files that have been shared with you throughout the school year will reside here within that photo and file tab. So it's a safe and secure environment for you, for your families, and a really neat collaborative platform where you can do one-on-one messaging and know that you just have all the information right at your fingertips.
Perfect. I'm just checking time here, and I think this is a great time to end, and I'm going to take back presenter mode here on my end. Perfect. Okay, let's end back with these habits, and then Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, and again, this was a sneak peek. By all means, if anyone is interested to learn more, we will be so happy to hear from you and share more and understand better what you're doing today and kind of what your vision is.
Perfect. Yeah, so I just want to wrap it up, and again, thank everyone for attending today's webinar during a very busy time of the day. And of course, we did record this, so we'll be sharing this out with you after the fact, so you can re-watch it or share it with your team. So please look for that email with the on-demand status of today's event. Yeah, we'll also send the presentation as well, so you can kind of page through some of these slides. As Lynn mentioned, we definitely encourage you to reach out to us if you want to learn more about ParentSquare, want to see how this actual tool can be used within your own school environment. How does ParentSquare activate each of these 7 habits? And as we built these with Bob, this slide deck we really wanted to find a way for ParentSquare to also support what he's doing, and it naturally tied in. So we can talk to you more about that as well. I have also fielding questions directly for Bob, so please reach out to me. I put my email on there if you have specific questions, if you want reference material. He just, he's such a wealth of information. He's happy to share more of that with you after the webinar. So with that, I would love to end it here. Thank you so much, Bob, for your time and your knowledge and your passion that you've shared with all of us today. Thank you for joining. And I think you're still on.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to share these ideas. We're all passionate about our kids, and to get to share and talk about them is just going to make us all better parents and better educators.
Exactly. It's definitely a universal sentiment. And Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through ParentSquare. On behalf of all of us, thank you for joining today, and have a great and wonderful rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.